Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stu here from Spain Speaks with an update on the current situation here in Spain, day 313 of the current situation, and the autonomous government's request to change the curfew times here in Spain has been rejected by the central government. So for the time being, things are going to stay as they are regards the curfew, but more about that in just a moment. A big thanks to all of the people that left comments on the last video. Lots of comments, lots of debate happening there as usual. Thanks to people that supported the channel by buying merchandise, and a big thanks to my patrons on Patreon for your support. Now let's get into the news, and as I said, the central government has rejected the requests of various governments around Spain to bring that curfew time forward to 8 p.m. There was a meeting yesterday between the health minister and the regional governments, and we can see here that Mr. Illa, the health minister, has refused to advance the curfew for now, but says he will continue to study it. The minister ignores the request of 15 autonomous governments, including that of Galicia, and insists that with the current tools it will be possible to break the third wave. So Mr. Illa there sticking to his guns, refusing to bring that curfew time forward, even though 15 autonomous communities around Spain had requested it. According to the minister, the current measures in place are enough to break the third wave, so we're just going to have to trust him on that. One of the governments here in Spain that was most vocal about changing the curfew times was Castilla y León, and we can see here that the Deputy President of Castilla y León, Mr. Igea, sees the central government's decision as unfair and authoritarian and says that thousands of people are going to die. The Vice President of Castilla y León, Francisco Egea, has assured in a radio program that his community will maintain the curfew at 8 p.m. despite the rejection of the government that has chosen not to advance it beyond 10 p.m. It is an unfair, authoritarian and irresponsible decision. It seems the government's advisor is Ivan Redondo and not the epidemiologists. If I could, I would get on my knees so that the health department would pay attention to me, said Egea, who has asked citizens to make a civic rebellion against the government and confine themselves. They need to stay at home because the situation is extremely serious, the Castilla and Leonese Vice President has warned. So Castilla y León, just one of many autonomous governments around Spain that is very unhappy with the decision of the central government. Now a quick update on the vaccination plan here in Spain. We know that it got off to a rocky start, but things are back on track, and we can see here that Spain has accelerated with the vaccine program. The only problem is that less vaccines than expected have arrived. The autonomous communities are gaining momentum in the race to immunise, but run into supply shortages. Experts are confident of being able to inject massively in March and ask for reinforcements in primary health. So the vaccination plan here in Spain being accelerated, but supplies are a little bit short. I wonder if this has anything to do with the fact that some politicians around the country have been caught red-handed, stealing vaccines and giving them to themselves and family members. Yesterday we spoke about the Minister of Health in the Murcia region who got caught taking an extra couple of doses for himself and his wife, but he refused to resign. The good news is that yesterday he finally did resign, as the pressure on him to do so was incessant. We can see here that the Murcian Minister of Health resigns after the controversy for being vaccinated against COVID-19. He had refused to resign in the morning, but criticism had been mounting throughout the day. The Murcian Minister of Health, Manuel Villegas, resigned this Wednesday after the controversy and the multiple requests for his dismissal or resignation for being vaccinated against the coronavirus without being among the priority groups. So the minister there in Murcia finally stepping down, and to be honest, I'm a bit surprised because this doesn't happen very often here in Spain. In fact, I could probably count on one hand the amount of times that politicians have resigned in the time that I've been here. So the good news is that he did resign, but the bad news is that unfortunately this is not an isolated case. We can see here from this headline, irregular vaccination of politicians, health managers and family members alerts about compliance with the immunisation plan. The resignation of the Murcia health minister and 2 hospital directors in the Basque country for receiving doses without being a priority group joined the administration of vaccines to retired workers of a Madrid hospital. Out of protocol vaccinations of politicians, health managers and people outside the priority groups in the region of Murcia, the community of Madrid and the Basque country are overshadowing the immunisation plan against COVID-19. In these autonomous communities, administration has been extended to groups other than the groups designated in the first phase of the vaccination strategy, vulnerable people such as the elderly in residences or dependents and first-line health workers. The Ministry of Health has insisted, after finding out about these cases, that we must follow the strategy agreed with the autonomous communities and that sets the priority groups in this first stage. Spain has so far administered 1 million doses, 76% of what was received. 2.17% of the population has received the serum. It is the second country in the European Union and the 7th in the world in vaccine deployment. Now let's have a look at the health data around the country by looking at a map of Spain as a whole and various autonomous communities. We'll start here with a map of the country. We can see that the countrywide risk level is high. The total amount of cases there now cracking the 2.4 million mark. The accumulated incidence rate in the last 14 days now up to 736. There have been 1,146 COVID-related deaths in the last 7 days. There are currently 25,228 patients hospitalised with COVID around the country, and there are 3,583 COVID patients in ICUs, which is 35% of all ICUs in the country. Castilla and Leon now, the risk level is high. The total amount of cases, the accumulated incidence rate the last 14 days now over the 1,000 mark at 1,047. There have been 62 COVID-related deaths in the last 7 days in Castilla and Leon. There are 1,481 patients currently hospitalised with COVID, and there are 193 people in ICUs, which is just under 35% of all ICUs in that particular autonomous community. We'll have a look at the other Castilla now, Castilla-La Mancha. The risk level there is extreme. The total amount of cases, the accumulated incidence rate in the last 14 days, 1,066. There have been 54 COVID-related deaths in the last 7 days. There are 1,612 patients currently hospitalised in Castilla-La Mancha with COVID, and there are 198 patients in ICUs, which is 44% of all ICUs in Castilla-La Mancha. And finally, the Valencian community, the risk level there is extreme. The total amount of cases, the AI rate for the last 14 days now at 1,075. There have been 285 COVID-related deaths in the last 7 days. There are currently 4,655 people hospitalised in the Valencian community with COVID, and there are 636 COVID patients in ICUs, which is 55% of all ICUs in the Valencian community. So the health situation around the country getting out of control very, very quickly, especially in the autonomous communities that we just saw. Now, another piece of news that made international headlines yesterday was an explosion in the centre of Madrid. Unfortunately, 4 people have now lost their lives, and we can see here that the death toll rises to 4 from the terrible explosion in a building on Toledo Street in Madrid. The deflagration occurred due to a gas leak while repairing a boiler in the building. A terrible explosion sowed chaos this Wednesday at 2:50 p.m. at the height of number 98 Toledo Street in Madrid, where there are buildings belonging to the Archbishopric. The virulence of the deflagration, which blew up 4 floors of the building, exposing the concrete and brick structure, could be heard from much of the capital, and many residents felt their furniture move. So a huge explosion yesterday in the centre of Madrid, and luckily more people didn't lose their lives. Now let's have a look at some of the comments from recent videos. One here from Arabol Trio The Jazz. Hi Stuart, I regularly watch your channel and enjoy your angle on the news. As a British national living in Spain for more than 20 years, I suggest you direct British people with residency queries after Brexit to CAB Spain or Citizens Advice Bureau Spain, where almost every issue of living and working in Spain is well covered. I found it very useful in the past. Muchas gracias, un saludo. Yeah, thanks for the comment, and good to see that you regularly watch and enjoy the channel. I have been getting quite a few queries in the comment section in recent times on people asking for advice, people from the UK not really sure what the current situation is, and thanks for pointing out that Citizens Advice Bureau page here in Spain. I'm sure that it will come in handy for people that want to know where they stand regarding these issues. I have spoken about this website in the past. I did a series of podcasts with an English guy called John a few years ago, and we mentioned this site quite regularly, and it does seem to be a very good site for people to get information, especially when it comes to some of the more tricky legal matters regarding residency here in Spain. So for anybody looking for advice, check that page out. One here from Paul. Stuart, the Mayor Antonio Perez Rojales has asked residents to be more responsible due to the cases of COVID. They have doubled in a week. In the first phase of COVID last year, there was hardly any. Very worrying. Yeah, Paul, thanks for the comment. I know that the situation down there in some parts of Alicante is very, very worrying at the moment. I was talking to a student of mine this morning whose father caught COVID last week and is currently in hospital, and she told me that all of the hospitals in the Elche region are at breaking point. And I also read that another city in Alicante, Alcoy, has the highest incidence rate in the whole of Spain. So things not looking good down there, and no wonder the mayor down there is asking people to be more responsible. But unfortunately, a lot of these calls seem to fall on on deaf ears. As we have seen, there were calls before Christmas for people to be careful. They weren't careful. They went and did whatever they wanted to do. Christmas celebrations were more important than the health crisis, and now we're in the situation that we're in. One here from Leslie Liu. Super work on this episode, Stuart. Thanks for directly referring to the local news online and demonstrating Spanish-English translation of current events. I'm trying to improve my Spanish, so I appreciate your reporting style. Not only is your channel informative, but also great for cultural understanding and language support, especially when you explain Spanish politics. Que lío. More power to your channel. Regards, Lilu from Marbella. Yeah, Lilu, thanks for the comment, and I hope I got the pronunciation of your name correct. And you're right, politics in this country can be a bit confusing, a bit of a lío, as you said there, a bit of a mess. And I don't know if it's just me, but politics here seems to get more confusing by the day. Good to see also that you're trying to improve your Spanish, trying to get a better cultural understanding of the country. Very, very important in my opinion, and it's unfortunate that so many people don't do that. And that is one of the main objectives of this channel, to help people better understand Spain. That's why I set up this community, and with all of the input that we get from various people around the country and around the world, I hope that it makes understanding this country a little bit easier. One here from Phil. Morning, Stuart. Thanks for keeping us up to speed on the current situation. I wondered what your feeling was on the speed the vaccine is being rolled out in Spain. I have a holiday booked for Nerja on June the 19th. Watching your channel, it's looking as if Spain is not going to be safe by then. What's your feeling? I won't hold you to it. Thanks again for the useful info. Yeah, Phil, thanks for the comment. To be honest, I'm not really sure what the situation is going to be by June. The vaccine program, as we know, got off to a bit of a slow start in Spain, and they're talking about speeding it up. They're talking about getting more vaccines out into the population starting in March. I don't know whether they will be able to do this or not. The UK, from what I have read, seems to be taking the vaccine plan quite seriously, and I even read the other day they're planning on setting up 24-hour vaccination centres in places like London, which I also mentioned the other day. There's no talk of doing that here in Spain. The government is confident, however, that they will have a large percentage of the population vaccinated by the end of summer. I think they're talking at around 70%, but not really sure what's going to happen before those summer months. I know that there are a few meetings going on at the moment trying to reactivate the tourist industry. We mentioned the other day a vaccination plan that is going to be discussed in the European Union, but I think that foreign travel to Spain is going to depend on the health situation in the origin country. So if you guys in the UK get the situation under control, if people get vaccinated and don't provide a risk to Spain, then I can't see why tourism shouldn't open up to foreign nationals for the months that you mentioned. But again, that's just my opinion, and I'm glad that you're not going to hold me to it. One here from Ross Bay Colt. Hard to find anything down the middle. Go with abc.es and elpais.es, which covers both ends of the spectrum, and try to form a centrist view from whatever you can. Yeah, Ross Bay Colt, you're right. Not easy to find papers in the centre here. Probably a good idea to go with one on the left and one on the right, and then come to your own opinion. That's unfortunately what a lot of people don't do. They only stick to their news on the right, or they only stick to their news on the left, and that is why we have such a division of opinions and nobody can agree with anybody about anything nowadays. But I try to sit in the middle, not to get hooked into the extreme points of views. Very difficult, because I have a lot of extremists around me that try to convince me that their ideas are correct. I've had people in the comment section accuse me of being on the extreme right. I've had people accuse me of being on the extreme left, but I try not to point these videos in either of those two directions. One here from Adrien. Mumbling is called masculleo in Spanish. Not sure, but maybe this has something to do with why the men are more prone to doing it. Yeah, Adrien, thanks for your comment, and thanks for pointing that out. I didn't know what the Spanish word for mumbling was, masculleo. I did go to the dictionary and have a look at the etymology of the word, and it has nothing to do with masculine. It has more to do with masticar, coming from the jaw, masticar, and masculleo apparently has something to do with the fact that you don't move your jaw very frequently when you talk, hence you mumble. On that note, I'll start to wrap the video up. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Debate the situation out as you normally do. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego.